Coming up on Windows Weekly, we got some more holiday gift picks from Paul Thurrott. Also, Windows Phone update rumors, how Hotmail's getting more interactive, and Paul's going to fix Windows. You got to watch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 187, recorded December 16th, 2010, Fez edition. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by Carbonite Pro. With prices starting at $10 a month, all your Office PCs can be backed up safely and automatically. For a free trial and to learn more, visit CarbonitePro.com. And by Ford and the new 2011 Ford Edge. It grabs attention as well as it grabs the road and features available My Ford Touch to connect you to your vehicle in new and innovative ways. The 2011 Ford Touch. Drive one this week at a Ford dealer near you. And by GoToAssist Express. Giving tech support for clients and colleagues in person is expensive and time-consuming. Support smarter remotely with GoToAssist Express. For a free 30-day trial, visit gotoassist.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers everything Windows with your host, Paul Thurrott, news editor for Windows IT Pro, man in charge of WinSuperSite.com, and the author of Windows Phone Secrets. I'm Tom Merritt, merely his servant, as he sits with his fez on his Windows throne. Welcome, Paul.
Yes, thank you.
I was trying to paint an audio picture.
I feel like I should be, I can't do this around the mic, but, somehow.
So you got your...
let us begin.
You got your TWiT Christmas present.
I did.
I guess it's a holiday present. Because
I was hoping it was going to be full of money, but this is okay.
Oh, yours didn't have the...
It didn't have the cash, yeah.
Oh, no, none of them did. None of them did. So I apologize to the audience. I made a promise that Leo would be back on Windows Weekly this week, but he had a school board meeting today.
Nobody is more disappointed than me, Tom, but we'll make do.
I don't know. I may be. I'm not sure.
I may be.
We'll have to compare this later.
We'll have to see. Okay.
No, I'm happy to be back. Absolutely. I love doing Windows Weekly. I always learn quite a bit about Windows and Microsoft from you, Paul. You're a vast fountain of good knowledge. And
which is better than my usual description, angel of death.
Oh, maybe I read that wrong. Oh, it does say angel of death.
Look, it's right there. I
pronounced it oddly. So our first topic today is fixing Windows, which has been a topic, I don't know, it's probably since the 80s. But
since Windows?
Yeah. What are we talking about this time?
Well, at the end of the year, every year, I look forward to the next year, and I sort of think about, the things I'd like to see change. So I've written articles already about, what Microsoft can do to fix Windows Phone in the coming year, what Apple can do to fix the iPad, for example. And now I'm looking at Windows, And Windows isn't going to see a major revision in 2011, but it is going to see one in 2012. And, of course, next year we'll probably get the first beta at least.
By the end of the year, right? We should see the first beta, don't you think?
Yeah, I just recently heard it was going to be September, but I sort of backtracking the schedule based on what I know about the schedule and what happened in Windows 7. I had previously been saying right around mid-year we should see at least the first limited beta, similar to the first limited beta that Microsoft released to the press and to some close reviewers for Windows 7, and then possibly September is the public beta timeframe, but certainly by the end of next year, yeah.
So that would be consistent if we got a limited in the summer and an official beta in September. I'd look forward to that.
Yeah, and you have to think, given their experience with Windows 7 and to a greater degree Windows Vista, where they didn't really hit the holidays in a great way, that for next time, they'll want that thing to ship early enough in the year that it makes sense for back to school and for the holidays and all that, because they really haven't had a Windows release like that in a long, long time. And
this next Windows release not only has to compete with OS X, but it may, depending on how it gets taken up, have to compete with Chrome OS.
Right, and the iPad, too.
Sure. Well, there's all that. Is the iPad an actual computer or not? Who cares? It is a competitor. People are using it in that way.
Right. I think and I don't know if you and I had talked about this or Leo and I previously, but I do feel that the iPad is going to evolve to be more like a PC. And I think that the PC needs to evolve to be more like an iPad, and that, you know, maybe in the future these things are a little hard to tell apart, or, you know, the lines get blurred or whatever. But you know, the PC in particular, and you know, the Mac to the same extent really, has evolved a lot over the years and has expanded, you know, to meet the needs of new markets and so forth. But, you know, with some small exceptions, I mean, Microsoft hasn't really stepped well outside of that established middle ground, you know, the PC middle ground. You know, netbooks are computers. They're just slightly slower, slightly less powerful computers, but they're obviously computers. And I think that Windows needs to evolve so that some version of it can run on these things that are a little further afield, like an iPad type device. And the current Windows UI just doesn't cut it on that type of thing. I think the current Windows user model, period, doesn't cut it. It's just too complex. You know, we talked about that Inspiron Duo last week and how lousy that was. And, you know, one of the problems with that kind of a system when you have Windows 7 on a tablet, even though it has multi-touch capabilities, it has tablet PC capabilities and so forth, there are still those parts of the UI that are just too small to tap with your hand. They just don't make sense in that kind of usage model. It's similar to the problem that Microsoft had with Windows Mobile before they just completely overhauled the system for Windows Phone 7. You know, you could dig deep into that Windows Mobile 6.5 UI, and all of a sudden you were at this UI from 1995 that literally was designed to be tapped with a stylus. It's impossible to hit with your finger. So I think at some point you have to kind of step back and, you know, just rethink things. And I think that's what Microsoft needs to be doing, and probably is doing. We just don't know about it yet when it looks at Windows 8.
Well, Google has identified that Chrome OS needs to actually be different than Android and lesser than, say, a Windows, a full-fledged Windows or OS 10 or a Linux. Does Microsoft need to do that, or can they either upgrade Windows Phone 7 or limit Windows 7 or Windows 8 to serve
right.
Which is the best way to go?
Right. So my opinion is actually that the best way to go would be to take the Windows Phone OS and upgrade it to that point. I think I think just starting over from scratch is the right approach, period, for this kind of thing. And I think the iPad proves that if you have this system that was designed for something that's small and mobile and from multi-touch from the get-go, that's the type of thing that you want for that kind of system. You know, Microsoft has shown very little inclination along those lines. So I think that the way they're going to approach it is to take Windows 7 or Windows 8 and detune it, if you will. You know, I think that they still believe that Windows is very versatile and it can accommodate all these different usage models and so forth. And we'll see, you know, how they do that. I have some ideas about how they could simplify Windows. I have some ideas about how they should change Windows. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and I don't expect them to do everything that I'm recommending necessarily, but I think something, you know, major has to happen. And I don't know that they have it in them to do something major simply because of what happened with Windows Vista and what a perceived disaster that was.
Is it the ossification of their bureaucracy that prevents them from doing that? Could they, you know, because conceivably they could just spin off a new group, somebody that doesn't have any history in Vista, and say, go for it.
They could, but there are powerful forces in Microsoft that don't want that to happen, right?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
The Windows division at Microsoft is responsible for a huge portion of their revenues, and they really do kind of call the shots. So I think politically speaking, it would be hard to do an end run around Windows, you know, with something that wasn't Windows. So I think that's what's driving that. You've seen over the years lots of examples of those established players, the Office group and Windows in particular, killing some of the smaller, more innovative groups in Microsoft simply because they were a threat to that core product. You know, Office famously killed the NetDocs initiative, which was really a web-based version of Office 10 years ago, very innovative for the day, completely dead in the water because of the strength of the Office team. And likewise on the Windows team, there are examples of things like eHome, you know, the guys that did the Media Center stuff, where they were really kind of something outside of Windows originally, and then they were just, once they became even slightly popular, they were just brought in-house. Yeah. So, you know, there's just a lot of examples of that. I think that's not all of it, but that's certainly a big part of it.
So if we want to fix Windows, you have ideas. You have things that we could do or they could do.
Yeah,
I
do.
I'm not going to do any of them, but
no, neither am I. And I got an email from someone at Microsoft. It's not worth explaining what the topic was or who he was or anything like that. But what it basically amounted to was, you've got a lot of criticisms, but what are your ideas for actually fixing this thing? And I pointed out to him that it's easy and cheap to be a critic. I don't solve problems. I just highlight the problems. But sometimes I do throw out some ideas. So I think one of the key problems with any desktop operating system, and I would include Mac OS X in this regard, and you can tell me if I'm accurate here, is that the thing is really kind of monolithic. You install everything onto a partition, and that partition includes, the operating system, all of your applications, and then all of your data. And the data isn't just documents, but it's things like system and application customizations. And these things all live within, folder structures that are pretty static. If you want to blow that system away and bring it back either to a known good state or just literally reinstall the thing from scratch, you have to be really careful to back up all of that data or ensure that you have a backup of it somewhere else and that you can resuscitate it on the other end manually. And then you also have to be able to reinstall all of your applications. And when you look at something like Chrome OS, where they're talking about this central system where you log into your Gmail account and then you get access to all of that stuff that's, linked to that account automatically, that's something that Microsoft has had the technology for over a decade and still doesn't implement properly in Windows. I think Windows should be designed in such a way that you can blow away the operating system, reinstall it, and then all of the apps are still there on the disk, all of your data and customizations, and that as part of setup, it just repicks up everything, and then you get back to where you were. Likewise, if you want, well, you wouldn't blow away your data partition exactly, but because it's separate, blowing away any one of those three things doesn't destroy the other two.
Right.
That you can do these things discreetly. And they've already componentized Windows. Like I said, they already have technologies for, this is a sort of a user state virtualization is what Microsoft calls this, or just user state. They have technologies for this, but they need to be available not just to businesses, but also to consumers. And then it needs to be really seamless. There needs to be a system where you can log on to a public PC or a friend's PC with your Windows Live ID and get access to all of that data and all of your applications, no matter where you are. That kind of thing. Basically what Google is offering with Chrome OS, but in Windows and with real native applications.
With the power of Windows operating system behind it instead of just a browser.
Right. I mean, the browser can be part of it. There can be web apps and all that, but I think that one of the big advantages of Windows still today is the rich collection of applications. You get, Photoshop and Office and all that. And there's no reason that this stuff can't be tied into this system. It's just that, the current system we have, it dates back literally to the 1980s. Drive letters, these weird static file systems we have. It's kind of an ancient system, but we're still stuck there.
Can they free us from the registry? That really, to me, seems to be one of the things that holds you back from easily making a lot of these leaps, right?
Yeah, I think looking ahead to these simpler devices, I think that the key to this is going to be virtualizing all of the legacy technologies that are now still a core part of Windows. That when they look back at 16, 32-bit applications, things that today are unfortunately pretty mainstream, they need to consider that stuff legacy cruft, and that they could have a core version of Windows similar to Server Core on the server side, but with a graphical operating system, of course, where if you had an iPad-type device, that would be the operating system. But on a PC, you would also have the opportunity to run all of these legacy apps, because on that system, of course, you would have more storage, more power, and so forth. And that, maybe that's the dividing line. But maybe they can create a compact version of Windows that does make sense on these core, smaller, lighter iPad-type devices and so forth. I think that needs to be part of it. You can look at what Apple announced for Lion, the next version of Mac OS X. I think a lot of people, especially technical people, kind of scoffed at this notion of, this big simple looking interface with, kind of an app store and, full screen apps and all that kind of stuff. But of course, people in our industry kind of forget sometimes that even the notion of two windows overlapping each other on a screen, to my parents, is pretty complex. It's not just clutter, it's also complexity. So, where you and I see power, other people see something that's, formidable and not necessarily what they're into.
Well, somebody I used to work with used to just frustrate the crap out of me because she would close every window when she was done with it. She never left Internet Explorer open. It was always like, okay, I'm done with that. Close. Now open Outlook. And now check my email, and then close that. I'm like, just leave them open. Stop that. You're wasting time. But it was is exactly what you're describing here. Was like, no, one thing at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, even as I say this, what's occurring to me is, one of the problems with Windows is always a dual-edged sword, if you will, because, it's all things to all people. And when you have a system like that, it's also not perfect for anybody. And a simplified Windows UI would not be good enough for you or I or for power users or whoever they are, different types of advanced users. So you have to have different types of UIs and different UIs that expose themselves on different kinds of devices and all that stuff. And then what I'm discussing there is more complexity. So I don't really have the answer. I just have, these are my ideas, and I recognize that there are problems with all of these things.
Do you think there needs to be an app store for that kind of user, particularly? Is that why we need that kind of thing? Because sometimes I hear people talking about, oh, we're going to put an app store in this. Intel's going to have an app store, and Dell's. Everybody just wants to have an app store because that's a buzzword. But it sounds like you're making a case that there's a user out there that needs one.
We can't pretend that an app store is innovative anymore because obviously Apple popularized this with the iTunes Store and then the App Store for the iPhone and so forth. But yes, I think that as you look at the way computing system platforms have evolved over the years, we've gotten to the point right now where any platform, whether it's a web platform, a mobile platform, or a traditional PC platform, needs to have an app store. It just does. For whatever it's worth, Microsoft had one. It was called Windows Marketplace. It's long gone now, but I think that thing should come back. In fact, one of the cool things about Windows Marketplace was that you could download and pay for an app from the store, and it would store that app and the product key you needed, if there was one, up in a digital locker. And you could always go back and get it. And that's one important piece. It's not in Windows at all. It's something that we absolutely need. But I think the second half of that is also not just having it be available, but having it be automatic. That as part of Windows setup, you could log into your Live ID and it will say, here's a list of the applications we have registered to you, free and or paid. Check off the ones you want installed as part of this, and that should just happen as part of Windows being installed.
The key to that would be free or paid. So if I download an open source app, I install Paint.net. It doesn't matter that I didn't get it from the Windows App Store. It's still stored up there. That would be great. Then I would love that.
Right. It doesn't have to be Microsoft apps. It doesn't have to be paid apps. It should be everything, and that should be the point of it. And when you buy a computer from a store or from a PC maker, it arrives in the mail, whatever. Again, as part of that first boot process, that same screen needs to come up. It needs to be part of Windows setup. It just needs to be something that happens. It needs to be as seamless and simple and obvious. And then again, if you have to go back and blow the thing away for some reason, that needs to be not painful as well. How nice would it be to buy a new computer, log on for the first time, have access to all your apps, have access to all your data, your custom wallpaper and settings and all that stuff automatically? It's just the technology exists. That's why it's frustrating. And of course, there are companies like Apple and Google that are implementing some of this stuff in different ways on their own products. And you have to wonder why Microsoft hasn't been able to add this to its core product, which goes out to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people every year.
Again, it goes back to that bureaucracy, that slow movingness, because Microsoft can crush people with this. They have the expertise to do it. There's no doubt about that, because like you've said, there's been a couple of different things like this that they've already done and killed before.
Yes,
so they even have mistakes to learn from.
Microsoft kills more products in a week than other companies release,
Yeah, right.
But I think, in the good news front, and I joke about being an angel of death. I do complain a lot, but I think that people need to understand where it's coming from. I would like to see this company get it right. I think it has the capability to get it right. But more important, perhaps, is Microsoft does their best work when their back is against the wall. And I think for a 10-year period there, they got really lazy. There wasn't a lot of competition. And when they get lazy, you get stuff like IE6, that just sits there in the marketplace for years and years and never gets improved. But when they have real competition, whether it's, Firefox and Chrome in the browser space, or Apple in the devices space and in the operating system space as well, suddenly Microsoft wakes up, and hopefully this will be that event. This is the kind of thing I'm trying to prod them towards, which is not, it's not like I have the answers. I don't mean it like that, but here are some ideas. here are some of the general ways I think that Windows could improve for the next version. You can see little glimpses of things. Windows 7 has little bits and pieces. They have this library scheme. And that's an interesting way, even as a consumer, to you could put a second hard drive in your computer, point your libraries at that hard drive, and then all your data will already be there, and there it is in a physical place. Now you have to manually go back and repoint libraries to those locations when you reinstall, but at least at least you've sort of accomplished it. There are little workarounds you can do now to sort of accomplish some of this stuff. I guess what I'm saying is it needs to all be in there as a core part of the operating system.
Because you can do it on Windows today via Chrome,
some of it,
right?
You can do some of it.
You run Chrome. You've got the Chrome Web Store. You could just decide to live in that that world and do a lot of what you're talking about. But you lose out on all of the advantages of having Windows if you do that, and that's where Microsoft has the big opportunity.
You could do that, and some of that stuff is cool. I mean, some of it's cool enough you should do some of it, absolutely. But you don't. That doesn't mean you ignore all the other stuff. The stuff you don't have in Chrome are things like iTunes and the Zune stuff, Microsoft Office. There's a whole the ability to play back and store hundreds of gigabytes of video files or whatever it is. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that isn't occurring in Chrome and OS and won't occur in Chrome OS for the foreseeable future. But it's available in Windows now, and if you were to bring the best of Chrome OS to Windows now, suddenly it's a no-brainer again. We have everything they have, plus we have all this other awesome stuff.
Any other fixes before we move on to the next topic, or are we?
Yeah, so I'm going to write a series of articles. I've already published one of them, but yeah, I mean, I just a couple that I would point out would be that I think that Microsoft needs to really rethink the SKU system in Windows. These are the product versions. I think there are far too many of them. I think that creating a simplified version of Windows for these iPad type devices or whatever, embedded devices, whatever they are, media center, set-top boxes, whatever, in some ways would require more SKUs. But I think when you think about it from an average user's perspective on a traditional PC device, there's a home user, there's a business user, and then there's the guy that needs all of it. And those, if you're going to have versions, those are the versions. And why do we have these other versions?
Home business ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why, you could make an argument that Microsoft should pull an Apple and just have the one version. And I know a lot of people would like to see that. I don't think it's realistic to think that they'll ever go there. But geez, simplify it, please. And I think that, I guess if I were to speak generally about this, a lot of what I'm talking about is just make it simpler. People like simple. People love the iPad because it's simple. Yeah. I think people like Windows 7 over Windows Vista because they perceive it to be simpler. It's cleaner looking. It just seems like a simpler OS. Part of that is, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors, but I mean, a lot of it is just, it's an evolution of Windows Vista. But, there is a difference when you sit down in front of a Windows 7 PC or compared to a Windows Vista PC. And I think
it's easier to find out what you're doing. That's the one thing I've noticed working in Windows 7. And I don't know if it's just because of the pinned icons down at the bottom, but I don't have as much experience of searching around to find that thing that I was using.
Well, I mean, are you a Mac user yourself?
I use OS 10 on the laptop, and I use Windows 7 on the desktop.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, what do you notice any major differences between these systems? I mean, if you were to look at both of these and say, here's something Mac OS 10 could benefit from the Windows side, and then on the reverse, here's something from Mac OS 10 I don't see occurring in Windows. I mean, how do you think of these things? Are they comparable? Are they?
What I find that I like about OS 10 is the easier install of applications. Windows has always had a more complicated install system, and then adding user access control and all of that stuff just adds a little bit of cruft to it. But otherwise, honestly, I feel like I'm more, even though I use my desktop more for gaming than anything, I feel like I'm more down to business. I'm more seriously computing when I use Windows, whereas OS 10 feels a little Fisher-Price.
Interesting.
And I spend most of my time in the browser anyway, so I'm not really interacting with the operating system per se. And I have years, and I used Windows virtually alone for 10 years, so I have a lot more experience in customizing it. The first thing I did was go back to the classic theme and turn off all of the pretty stuff.
Wow. How could you do that, Tom?
Go into MS config, turn off everything I didn't
Right.
want to launch, all that stuff. So I feel like I have more control over how that works. But then again, I don't feel like I need to have that much control over OS 10. And maybe that's because I have less experience running it, but it doesn't do things that bother me as often.
There is a weird line there between, taking away control, which power users will not like, and yet I think it would benefit more users, and it's kind of a tough thing, But maybe that's the difference between home and business, right there. Or one of the differences. I don't know that this is the correct term for this, but what you were describing for the application install stuff on the Mac is, I think of it as packaged apps.
Yeah.
Because they create a thing that seems like it's the icon for the app, but what it really is a folder.
Right.
That has all of the stuff inside of it. Windows still uses this system of shared DLLs that dates back to when we used to swap floppy drives out of the computer because we didn't have enough resources to have the same DLL appear multiple times in the file system. Today, this is no longer a concern.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things they need to do as part of this thing for Windows 8 is specify this new modern type of application where it would be packaged into its own folder. And again, as part of Windows setup, I think when Windows is reinstalled, it should be able to parse those folders and just reapply those applications into the start menu, so that they're just there. They should just be standalone apps. This whole thing where every app is sharing files and the little tendrils are going all over the system is crazy. It is so out of date. I just don't understand how it's possible that we're still doing it, but we are.
And it's one of the reasons why I always reinstall all my applications when I move from one Windows machine to another, rather than just import everything across, because it's a good chance to start over again because you don't know what's hidden where.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Carbonite Pro. Business PCs crash all the time. We were just talking about cloud storage of your data. One way to make sure that you can reinstall all of your data when you move to a new machine or you move to a new operating system is to have it backed up online. You're at risk for viruses on any machine. Doesn't matter whether it's Mac, PC, or otherwise. So be sure to keep your business up and running, even if your computers aren't, with Carbonite Pro. It's easy to use, whether you're a computer novice or a full-fledged techie. It's automatic. It just works in the background. People can get their work done. You don't have to bother with them. They can just work away. They have no idea what's going on, but it's backing up your files automatically. Prices start at just $10 a month, and you'll only pay for the amount of backup you need. It's one account with one monthly bill, and they give you a centralized dashboard to give you backup status summary of all the computers in your business, so you know who's backed up and who's not. You can tell who's coming into work that way if they have their computer off. If there's ever a data loss problem, each employee can access their own backup files themselves, and you can be notified when they reinstall. Your office is back up and running with no headaches, even if you have multiple hard drive crashes, because your files are backed up off-site. And people can even access their files when they're on the road on their phone. They have apps for iPhone, BlackBerry, free apps, so they can access all that data that's backed up. Try Carbonite Pro free for 30 days. Prices start as low as $10 per month. Go to carbonitepro.com and check them out. Prices start at, like I said, low as $10 per month, and you can try it for free for 30 days. We thank them for their support of Windows Weekly. Leo Laporte off today at a school board meeting for all of those sitting there wondering, the hell's Leo? Why do we have to sit through Merritt again? That's why. He'll be back again next week. Windows Phone update rumors coming. Sort this out for me, because there's a Windows Phone update they've said for sure is coming, and then there's another Windows Phone update that some people have said is coming after that in February, and then there's another one now they're talking about in September. What's going on here?
I have no idea. So,
oh, well.
Yeah.
Moving on then.
Back in August, September timeframe, I was told that they would ship an update for Windows Phone basically simultaneously with the launch. And at the launch event, I was told that they had a huge update that was imminent, that was going to come anytime anytime soon. And obviously, or maybe not obviously, Windows Phone has never been updated, so I don't know what's going on. There were rumors about January. There were rumors about different size updates for January: a small update, a big update, a copy and paste update, and now people are talking about a second update for February, and now this major update, which some are calling Windows Phone 7.5
or Mango,
right, which would ship toward the end of the year. I don't know. the nature or timing or number of these updates.
Or the reason it's called Mango?
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't know anything about it. I have a feeling that because of my role in working on the book about Windows Phone and the sheer amount of email I sent to the Windows Phone PR team, I think they're tired of me. I don't know how else to say it.
Have you been blocked? You're on the block list?
Well, I feel like I am. I mean, I'm sure that's not the official stance, but I think I inundated them with so much mail for a while there that they just kind of fell asleep. I mean, I think they just lost it, and I don't know. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed in Windows Phone. Hopefully it gets fixed sooner rather than later. I had expected fixes, updates by now, many updates.
I thought the copy paste being added in January, I thought an official had actually confirmed that. But am I remembering that wrong?
I don't believe so, but they basically said that there would be a copy and paste fix out in early 2011. I think what you're thinking of is there was a rumor site or some enthusiast or someone who was saying that, there was going to be an update in January that was so big it would be like Windows Phone 8, and I think they responded to that and said, yeah, that's not happening. We're going to ship a copy and paste. And I think at the time they even said that would be the update. We're going to ship copy and paste.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Copy and paste is such a minor issue compared to the hundreds of little things that need to be fixed that I wish that were not the case. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I would like to see them fix a lot of little things that are broken in the current shipping version of Windows Phone before they add another feature. I mean, I think there's lots of little things that need to be fixed. Lots of people having issues with the Marketplace app where you just tap on Marketplace, kind of spins for a little while, and then it crashes back to the home screen. And the only way, once that happens, the only way you can prevent it is to shut down the phone, restart it, and then go right into Marketplace, and then it will work. But you have to shut the thing off. It's like the way PCs used to be 20 years ago. So I'd like to see them fix that. Copy and paste would be a nicety, and certainly it would be, it'd be great to have it. But I really just think there are more important things that need to occur.
Yeah, copy paste on a phone is one of those things that every so often you're like, oh, I guess I can use copy paste. Boy, this is a pain because I'm on a really tiny screen. So I get why they didn't worry about prioritizing that for the release, and I get why they want to make sure that people know it's coming because it's one of those things people want more than they're actually going to use. But you got to fight that war of perception.
It's terrible when you need it and it's not there. But the truth is, and I mean this honestly, looking back over the past several months, once or twice maybe, I wish I had it. It's not really that frequent of a problem for me anyway.
But it sounds like we won't actually get the marketplace type fixes, the developer type fixes until February. At least that was the rumor. Is that I can't remember which conference, but they would be announcing stuff then.
Yeah. So right. So there are two big conferences coming up, and you can kind of map it out. Where they might announce stuff. January, of course, is CES, and certainly Windows Phone is going to be part of the CES keynote that Steve Ballmer gives. There's going to be some news there. I would assume they're going to talk about sales, perhaps for the first time, and at least discuss, if not release, some form of update. The problem I have with this kind of thing is, just let's talk about the marketplace problem. Microsoft should fix that. It should not be anything that needs to be announced or blogged about. You should just get a software update. It should automatically install if that's how you have it set up, and you shouldn't even notice it happened, and it should just happen. I mean, that's one of 100 things that should have happened already by now. It just doesn't make sense to me for this to be part of some update scheme. They must be looking at these updates as a more formal thing. And maybe it has to do with their interactions with the carriers and how these people have the ability to block these updates over one update cycle and so forth. Maybe that's it. They're setting their sights a little high on these updates, perhaps, when I think that these things need to be rolled out as they're fixed. I think they should just be fixing stuff.
There was quite a bit of buzz right when Windows Phone 7 came out about who would control the update cycle, and Microsoft came down very firmly and said, we will control the update cycle. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's what's going on, is to remain in control, they have to push them out all at once?
I don't.
Just making stuff up, but...
They tested a series of very small updates during the beta. It was a non-event, and that was what led me to believe that, there's no reason this thing couldn't be updated all the time on an ongoing basis. I really think that that's how it should have happened already. And to me, this whole thing is just disappointing. This is another example of where these guys need to, wake up a little bit and address the world and explain what's going on. The last time that they were this quiet about something was Windows Vista, and we know how that went and how, the first year that Vista was out, Microsoft was hammering them with switcher ads and, I'm a Mac ads on TV and everything, making fun of Windows Vista, and Microsoft was silent.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be great news. They don't have to come out and announce we've shipped some number of phones and blah blah blah, whatever. That's not it. I just be transparent, do what you said you're going to do, and just update the damn thing and get it fixed. I mean, people are really enthusiastic about it, but the more time that goes by, it gets disconcerting at first and then disappointing, and then you go through the 7 stages or whatever. But you got to fix the thing, and I wish they would just get there.
Maybe that's what the 7 means.
Yeah, there you go. The Windows Phone 7 stages. Agreed. Yeah.
The hot thing in web email these days is making you stay, or letting you stay in the interface without having to click over into a new tab. Hotmail's added some more of that kind of functionality, right?
Yeah, and it's really just an extension of a feature that's been in Hotmail now for several months, I believe. I think this stuff, the original active views debuted in the last major rev to Hotmail, but they've expanded this out to new partners, and they've got more on the way. But the idea here is that partners who take advantage of this feature in Hotmail can basically supply an interactive web experience right in an email. So if you book travel through Orbitz, for example, this is one of the examples they use. You book the flight. You could also, when you get the email confirmation from within the email, you can book your hotel or a rental car, and you do it right within that interface. You don't leave the email. A simpler example of this, and I believe this probably happens in Gmail today as well, but if somebody sends you a YouTube video, you can play the video right there in the email.
That's the kind of thing people are more concerned about. I mean, the Orbitz thing sounds interesting, but I don't think I'm going to run into that case a lot. But playing a video, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, for this to make sense, a lot of companies need to adopt this scheme. And I have mixed feelings about this. I have to say I'm not necessarily enthused about it. When I think of things like somebody sends me a YouTube video, I don't actually want to play that in my email program. I do want that to be in another window. The reason being that I can kind of throw it over on the side of the screen and then go back to reading my email. Mm-hmm. I don't tend to single task in that way, depending on what it is, of course. I would be a little weirded out, I think, by doing something as serious as booking travel in the middle of an email message.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I want that to be its own thing, and I would even take that a step further and say, I don't know that I would book travel in certain browsers even, let alone inside of an email in certain browsers, I mean, this is, especially if it's a family trip and you're spending thousands of dollars, and this is something that requires a little bit of maybe dedicated resources, both on your part and on the part of the application you're using. So we'll see. I mean, this is an interesting expansion, and, certainly Hotmail has hundreds of millions of users, so this could impact a lot of people, but I don't know.
I do like being in Gmail. You can actually play a YouTube video, and I do like being able to do that, especially when people send us links to video messages for Tech News Today, and I'm in that email box, and I'm picking like, okay, I want to see which emails and which voicemails we're gonna play. I can play that without leaving that interface and getting distracted. It keeps me focused on the task.
Right.
But I get what you're saying. If it's just kind of a fun video,
that's what we're talking about.
You just want to throw it over to the other side.
Well, I mean, one of the companies that is doing this is Monster.com. So you get an email from Monster.com, and then from within this email, you can start with looking for a job. I found my job in an email message. Really, it just seems kind of, if you need a job, aren't you gonna? I mean, you're gonna really work on that, aren't you? I mean, is it? But Monster.com found something that you might be interested in, and then from there you just keep going and. From within the email, it just seems a little hokey to me, but
it depends on the case. You're right. Certain things, and I don't know why it has to be partner based.
Right.
In some of the cases, I guess I can see it, like travel. Some of the less common cases, I could see it. But
well, Microsoft has capabilities in Hotmail that relate directly to its own services as well, right?
Yeah,
so there's integration with Office web apps and all that.
And that's great.
I think that it is great, but I think that if they left it just to that, there would be cries from the outside of favoritism and so forth. If there were an Office web apps competitor that made sense, I guess Google Docs does, but if Microsoft didn't provide a way for those competitors to offer similar functionality in their own online Office suites through Hotmail, there's a potential there for lawsuits and antitrust cases and all kinds of stuff. So obviously the partner cases make it more interesting because, A, Microsoft doesn't do everything, but even when they do offer an alternative, people use other services. So this is a way, if those services want to have a better experience in Hotmail, they can do it, through this extensibility model.
One good thing Microsoft has done is backport Office 2010 security to Office 2003, 2007. Because, as we know, not every business place upgrades every time Office gets upgraded.
That's for sure.
That's, no more than they upgrade Windows every time there's a new window.
I'm horrified when I fly. I always look at what's on people's screens when you walk up the plane or whatever. And man, it's all over the map. But I had a recent trip where I sat next to a guy who actually this was on a train, but he had.
You're on a train?
Yeah, well, I live in the Northeast, so we can take trains back and forth.
Oh, you have trains out there. That's right.
Yeah,
I forget.
Yeah, it's like Europe over here, Tom.
That's right. Your socialized medicine and your trains. And...
That's exactly right. Yeah. And man, it was like a computer museum over there. I just was shocked by it. But he was getting work done, I guess. I mean, who am I to say? But as Office has evolved, I think one of the interesting things that Microsoft has done is in Office 2007, they added these XML-based file formats. And those file formats have incredible advantages over the more, the traditional Office formats in a variety of ways, security and also reliability and so forth. And
attracting patent lawsuits in the case of I4I.
Yes. All kinds of advantages. So, well, actually, if you think about it, these are to documents as those packaged apps are to apps. I mean, it's basically a package, a zip file of, the contents and the styles and all that all separated out. It's very nice and object-oriented in a way, if you will. But, they backported those Office documents in some ways to, to earlier versions and so forth. They were improved again in Office 2010. But as computer hacking has evolved and as Windows has improved and the core Microsoft apps have improved, hackers have turned their attention to other things, third-party applications, especially Adobe apps right now, but also documents, things that will be sent via email as attachments and so forth. But what they're going after now, apparently, are these older pre-Office 2007 file formats. So a .doc file instead of a .docx file, which is the new file format for Word. And in the case of Excel documents, PowerPoint presentations, and publisher files, I guess a lot of hackers are going after these file formats, and not after the application, not after the operating system, but literally after the file format. Because, Office applications or Office documents are actually pretty powerful. They can run macros and, there's executable code and things that can occur like that. So in Office, this is so convoluted as I'm saying this, I'm sorry. But in Office 2010, one of the features they introduced for that version of the suite was Office file validation. And it actually looked for these binary attacks that would be in file formats, document files, essentially, from older versions of Office. But they didn't make it available to older versions of Office. And now they are. So sometime in the next quarter, Microsoft is going to release updates for both Office 2003 and 2007 that will provide them with the same protection against those binary attacks on older Office file formats, older Office documents, .doc, XLS, PPT, and whatever the publisher, pub, I guess, .pub probably, file format. So these protections exist, there are certain protections just that are available in the newer XML-based formats. Newer versions of Office, or the latest versions of Office, already includes protection against attacks in these older document file formats, and now that stuff will be backported as well. So that was a 20-minute long description of a very simple issue. Sorry about that.
So the end result is good.
Yes, there's no bad news here.
If I can sum it up.
I'm waiting for the dark, dark shadow side. It's all good.
Yeah. Although, Is there any danger? I mean, I'm one of the people, as I believe you are, who's constantly preaching get off IE6 if you at all can. But is there any equivalent danger to being on Office 2003?
I'd have to go back and check. I mean, to see whether Office 2003 has had the newer file formats backported. I think it did. I remember when Office 2007 first came out, one of the issues was that all the people I worked with didn't have newer versions of Office, and we couldn't interoperate with the document.
There was a plugin, I remember.
Yeah,
that you could.
For Office 2003.
Yeah.
It seems so, yeah. I think that the big danger now isn't so much the version of the suite, it's the file format. So if you could get off of the .doc format in Word and use .x, specify that as the default save format, I think that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's the big deal. There's a combination of things you can do to really screw yourself up. I mean, if you're running Windows XP and an old version of Office and IE6 and, God help you, essentially. I mean, at that point, I think when you have newer versions of the operating system, the browser, the suite, and all that, you have multiple layers of protection that are all doing different things that just aren't available, in the older versions. But even in these new versions of the software, there's protection in there against the attacks against these older file formats. Now that's what they're backporting now. So I think this is just an attempt by Microsoft to cover its bases, if you will. They support a lot of their core products a lot longer now than they used to. And I know that when the doc format was still roaming the earth as a viable document format, I mean, it was around for a long, long time. And its inventors never foresaw the type of attacks that are possible now online. So it's just out of date.
All right. I'm actually, you may scoff at me, some of you out there, but I'm actually excited to talk about the updates to Bing. We'll get we'll get to that in a second. I want to thank Ford, makers of voice-activated sync, and the 2011 Ford Edge. With its smooth lines, fluid aerodynamic shape, it's a pretty car. Great interior, exceptional fit and finish, and unbeatable V6 highway fuel efficiency. Edge has an advanced V6 engine which generates 285 horsepower, but gets 27 highway miles per gallon. So it's got great fuel efficiency for a car in its class, unsurpassed. Edge is also available in a high-performance Edge Sport, which has even more horsepower. In fact, the Edge is an Edge is what I was tooling around with in the wine country a couple weeks ago with my relatives when they came in for Thanksgiving. They rented one. My Ford Touch comes on the Edge, connects you to your vehicle in a new and intuitive way, enables you to customize your vehicle to fit your needs, including the ability to get in and just say, you know what, I want red lights right now. I want Greenville Comet blue lights right now. 8-inch touchscreen in the center stack, 2 5-way switch pads on the steering wheel, information on 3 LCD screens, and of course voice commands through sync. We invite you to experience my Ford and the 2011 Ford Touch by driving one at a dealer near you. It's also a contest going on from Ford right now. Your chance to win a trip to Madrid, Spain for you and a friend to test drive the all-new Ford Focus coming out in early 2011. Ford will donate $10,000 on your behalf to a charity of your choice. To enter, submit a video now through December 31st, 2010, saying what charitable cause you would support and why if you're selected. And then go to twitfordfocus.com, upload that video. Take a look at the other videos up there as well. Try to keep your video short, probably around 2 minutes or less. You've got until December 31st to make your video and upload it. Again, available to TWiT audience members worldwide. Not one of these limited contests where we don't even allow Canadians in. This is worldwide. The URL, again, is twitfordfocus.com. That's how I always hear that when we run contests that are U.S. only. Canadians are like, why do you always leave us out? We're putting the whole world in. twitfordfocus.com. Check it out. And stop by a Ford Lincoln Mercury dealer and test drive a 2011 Ford Edge. You won't regret it. All right. Bing. Microsoft had a big Bing conference. Was it yesterday morning?
You need to explain yourself first. What you're excited about this?
I was excited because I like competition for Google, and Bing. I don't feel like they did anything in this announcement that put them in front in any particular way, but they really juiced up a lot of stuff in Bing. It makes me excited to want to use it.
Yeah, I actually really like Bing a lot, and I think the trouble with it is it does certain things really, really well, and it's a little bit of a trick to know which of those things it does well. And I think what I got out of this announcement is that they're enhancing the number of things, if you will, that it does well, and I like that. And I think they're finally responding to Google's instant answer feature, which there was this perception at the time that Microsoft was just kind of surprised by that. This thing where, if you haven't seen it, if you go to google.com and you start typing it, it provides answers instantly in this dropdown. And it's actually a pretty powerful feature. They're adding it to cell phones and so forth. So Microsoft actually is going to have a similar feature in Bing called Instant Previews, which is great. So they were able to turn that one around pretty quick. But yeah, this is sort of like the Hotmail thing. It's going to require working with third parties for it to be really powerful and so forth. It looks like they're doing some of that stuff. They're making the search results more visual and attractive, almost magazine style layouts, which I really like. They're improving the mobile apps, but only on the iPhone and Android right now, which is killing me, by the way. But this is more HTML5 stuff in there. Microsoft had gotten some criticism earlier for requiring Silverlight for certain Bing search features. So they're going more HTML5, in maps especially, but also in the image results, the image search results, which is a really cool feature as well. So,
are you excited by the Facebook integration, or does that because that seemed to be the headline?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I need to see how that happens. So yeah, it seems like every couple of months Microsoft improves Bing. I mean, this thing's on a rolling schedule, which is really nice and more in keeping with how I think they should do other things. They announced some Facebook integration features earlier. They've rolled out a few more now. And I've just not seen it yet, so I'm not sure how to react to that. One of the weird things about me and Facebook is that I have a lot of people who have friended me on Facebook that I don't know. But that also means I have a nice kind of database of people, and I am curious to see how this impacts things. So you can see if if people in Facebook have liked a certain thing, whether it's maybe a movie or a book or a restaurant or whatever, those things will propagate into the Bing search results. And I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, I think of Facebook though as being only one of the things that's important for that kind of stuff. I mean, they talked about integration with OpenTable and Yelp and things for restaurants or
a lot of good local stuff. That was good.
Yeah, and I think that stuff is very important. So, yeah, we'll see. I think I need to see more of it before I can say on the Facebook side.
I like the idea of making the search results more relevant to me, no matter what search engine we're talking about, and that seems to be the main focus of a lot of these announcements. And maybe that's why I got excited. Is the idea of not just the Facebook stuff, because I only have Facebook friends now that are people I know, but I don't tend to see them show up all that much. I don't think they're liking a lot of things.
Exactly.
But like you say, the idea that that maybe there would be one, it would be more valuable because they don't like things all that often. So if I'm like, oh, my sister liked that, well, that's interesting. Or this restaurant, this is available to reserve on OpenTable, one click. That's great stuff. So.
Yeah. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, it's really worth looking at the Bing app. It's a very attractive app, and now it looks a lot more like the Windows Phone version, which is kind of interesting. But when Windows Phone first came out, one of the things I really liked about it was the Bing Maps application. And there's just something about the color scheme and the fonts and all that where it's just very readable. And compared to something like Google Maps, I just really prefer the Bing look and feel. And they've basically... I don't want to say ported it because they've actually improved it further. But if you go to the standard web version of Bing Maps now, that's been updated as well. And it's just more readable. And one of the ways to see that is, if you ever use Google Maps for traffic, they actually have for a route, a destination to a route to a destination type of thing. The lines over the highways, whether they're your route or the traffic lines, they have the red, green, and yellow lines. They actually overwrite the route numbers or the road names in Google Maps, and
so you have to go turn off the traffic to see the route
what it was.
Yeah.
It's always driven me crazy. And if you're in a car in a mobile device, I mean, this is just. I mean, it doesn't make it useless, but it makes it really frustrating to use. And in my experience, Bing has always done a much better job of that kind of stuff. So, and now it's even better. So they, like I said, they ported that or brought over the look and feel from the Windows Phone app is what it looks like to me. It's just a nice color scheme. They just do a nice job with the presentation. Well,
and Bing, I think it was just today they announced up another infinitesimal percentage point, but they're up to 11.8% of searches now, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a good chunk.
Yeah, that's not bad. And actually, if you throw the Yahoo stuff in there, because they are powering Yahoo search,
right.
I think it's somewhere around 28%. I want to say somewhere in that.
Yeah, it's something over 25% somewhere.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, that we need that competition.
Right.
We cannot.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And like I said, it'd be instructive to load a map up of the same thing in Google Maps and Bing Maps side by side. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
How readable and nice looking the Bing version is.
Do you want to move on to your holiday tech gift picks?
Oh, I do. I wanted to throw some stuff in there that were specific companies or services to go to. But yeah, so we've been talking about holiday tech gift picks. I think we did a few of those last week as well.
Whatever. I by the way, I have to correct myself. I'm glad I'm doing the show this week. I kept calling it Orbit. It's Orb, the device that I was trying to recommend.
Right.
I was drunk. Or something. I don't know. Some excuse.
That's what we do here. It's okay.
Senile.
Yeah, if you one thing that we talk about technology, and I think a lot of us sit hermit-like in our little offices and never see the sun or experience the weather or whatever. But I think one of the cool things you can do with technology is also create things for people, and I think that makes for a cool gift. And I do these things every year, both inside my house, for people in my family and for friends and so forth. But you can make, especially photo gifts, I think is the big one, is, books and calendars and mugs and so forth. One of the things, it's a little thing, but one thing I do every year at Christmas time is replace the 5 or 6 photos we have up on the walls in the living room with photos from the past year. So it's something I cart out the inkjet printer that we never use for anything and make sure the heads are all clean, and then I print out those pictures. But we make a calendar for the kitchen, same thing every year, and it's just a nice personalized kind of gift that you can make for people that you're really close to, and it's just kind of a neat thing you can do. Now, obviously, if you're on a Mac, you have iPhoto, whatever. It's kind of an obvious thing, but on the Windows side, it's a little less obvious. So one of the services I have been using, and I believe they used to be what was behind the photo printing, the photo book printing stuff on iPhoto, if they aren't still, is the My Publisher service. Is great for that kind of stuff. Photo books and calendars, and also cards and so forth, is all great. But I have a couple of other. We have a tip of the week. I'll get to that. There's another integration piece here where you can also find some of these gift ideas through Windows Live Photo Gallery, for example. So there's some neat stuff you can do there.
I've got a couple gift ideas that are of the I made my own card for you, Mom situation. You don't want to spend a lot of money, or you don't have a lot of money, or maybe you just don't care about the person all that much.
Right.
I'm going to suggest I mentioned it earlier on the show. Go into MS Config for someone. Do that.
Yes.
They may actually appreciate
PC
that
tune-up service.
Yeah, more than anything else, and just uncheck QuickTime and a few other things for them. Speed up their boot time.
Like the PC Performance Fairy,
Yeah, exactly.
Just blow through.
There's tons of other things you could do if you really want to get into it, but that small thing alone will help tremendously. Also, opensourcewindows.org. As far as just helping people find some good free solid programs they can use is something I've relied on for years because it's curated. It's not just a list of every open source program on the planet. It's what they think are sort of the best, and they change them over time and they update them. So check that out as well. But yeah, just a couple of freebies there. And if they don't have it, buy them Call of Duty Black Ops.
Absolutely.
They need to have Xbox 360. So
it's the Angry Birds of the Xbox 360 world.
Yeah. And they just did a patch for it because some people were having some server issues. So it's even if that one little niggling thing was holding you back, which it shouldn't have been, that one's gone too. All right, that it? Any more gifts before we move on to the Q&A?
I think that's good.
All right.
I think that's where I'm at.
Excellent. We are going to try to get Dmitry Skalin from Microsoft, who's done the TWiT app, but we're having problems getting a hold of him. So we'll dive right into the live Q&A after I tell you about GoToAssist. If you provide tech support, if you're the person who seriously might be that person who's going to do MS-config as a gift for someone, you know that going to a person's home or office is time-consuming and expensive. You may not be able to avoid your family on the holidays, but you can, in fact, avoid going to your clients' offices if you use GoToAssist Express. It's easy and cost-effective way to support them online and get their problems solved faster so they're satisfied. You don't have to travel, so you're satisfied. Fix problems without being there in person, increase revenue, reduce travel time, service more clients. You can actually get more problems fixed this way. Make the most out of your workday. Try it for free for 30 days. You just visit gotoassist.com/Windows. You start your sessions with just one click. They don't have to have it installed on their end, though. It works on both PCs and Macs. Share your screen. They can share theirs. Includes an integrated live chat so you can talk to them. Talk them through whatever you're doing, diagnose the problem, fix it remotely, and you're done. GoToAssist is brought to you by Citrix. All data exchanged during your session is completely secure with end-to-end 128-bit encryption. Free customer service available 24/7. Try it out today. GoToAssist.com/Windows, and we thank them for their support of Windows Weekly. All right, we're going to try the Q&A here. For some reason, all of our chat connections here in the cottage got banned.
Nice.
Not sure exactly why.
But I just wanted to make sure there was no silliness in the Q&A.
That may be it. No spiking the punch.
Other than this.
Did you forget you had the fez on?
It's something.
It just sort of blends right into your head.
I wear one normally, so it's just a different fez.
All right. Well, I've got the chat running on my phone, so I should be okay. If you want to throw your question or your question into the chat room, don't throw the answer. That just makes it too easy. You throw it. And I won't be able to moderate them as well as I used to, so I may end up asking questions like, "What kind of bear is best?" But let's actually
kind of beer or bear?
Bear, BEAR.
Is best?
Yeah.
No bears are good. So that's kind of a
bear people.
That's a crazy question.
The Junga wants to know: is it true Bing on Windows Phone 7 can only be updated, enhanced by OS updates and not by application updates?
I'm not even sure what the distinction is there, but
I assume
it's part of the operating system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this is what I mean. In other words, individual features of the operating system should be updated individually. I don't understand why they have to be part of a big software update that's system-wide. I mean, I believe that Bing, the Bing application is actually a great example of something that should have been updated already. It shipped missing features that were in the iPhone and Android app versions, and as of today, those two apps have both been updated with significant new features that the Windows Phone version doesn't have. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's probably what prompted that question. I think I know the answer to this one. Win Longhorn wants to know, what do you think about the rumor Windows 8 will be showcased at CES? Yeah.
I think it's a possibility. I think it would be smart. Again, when you understand the schedule, when would be the first time they mentioned it? When could it be? CS is a pretty good time because, again, the beta is going to happen sometime that year. But on the other hand, this is the second year in a row at CES that Microsoft is going to showcase tablets. And I guess this will be the first year where they actually have something to deliver. So you want to be careful about not promising too far in advance. Last year when they talked up these Slate PCs, it kind of fizzled. So you want to be a little bit careful. You also don't want to talk too much about Windows 8 too early, because you're in the midst of a sales boom time for Windows 7, and you don't want to give businesses in particular an excuse not to upgrade. So, I think it's a possibility, but, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I think we'll hear something about Windows 8 in Ballmer's talk. He won't avoid the topic. He won't be silent on it. How much we'll actually hear, anybody's guess.
Yep.
I bet Steve Ballmer may not even know how much at this point.
Steve is a history of just blurting stuff out, so that could be good news for anyone who's looking for information about Windows 8.
That's true. Did I guess Security Essentials 2.0 released today? I wasn't aware of that. Did you hear about that?
Did not hear that.
All
so
right.
that must have just happened, perhaps.
Well, thank you. That's a good tip from CL
Let's look for that, shall we?
He wants to know what's new, but
the only thing I can recall off the top of my head is that there was deeper integration with IE9 or IE8 rather. Excuse me. I'm just seeing if I can find whether 2.0 has released. Yeah, I don't see anything about it, so I'm not really sure.
Here's the perennial, when is Windows 7 Service Pack 1 going to be released? Question is still popping around.
Roughly April timeframe. Is what I've heard. Although, originally the plan was by the end of this year. They missed a key milestone over the summer. They were supposed to ship the beta in time for TechEd, and they missed that because of a bug that was actually on the server side of the equation, but that Service Pack services both server and client. So the release candidate is available now and first quarter, but April is what I had heard previously.
Zephyr wants to know what the easiest way to get into developing a Windows Phone 7 app would be.
Yeah. There are awesome resources for developing for Windows Phone 7 right now, and a lot of them are free. So obviously the first place to start is developer.windowsphone.com, and there you'll get all of Microsoft's awesome documentation. They've got great, video how-tos and all that kind of stuff. Also, programming legend Charles Petzold has published an enormous book about programming for Windows Phone 7. It's completely free. You can download the PDF. And I think one of the neat things you can do now, and with ebook readers or just with a PDF reader with a book like this, is you can have that book open on your screen side by side with the development environment and just go through all the examples. And it's not like before we'd have this ginormous book on the desk and you were trying to hold it open with rulers and stuff to make sure it didn't flip to the wrong page. But you can actually have all this stuff on the screen. And it's worth also pointing out that the Windows Phone developer tools are all absolutely free. So this is something that's very accessible to anybody.
And
sorry,
you have to pay the $99 if you want to submit. Is that where the cost?
Yeah, if you want to
in?
submit an app to the store,
right.
Yeah, it's $99. But you don't need to do that just to develop the app. In fact, if you have a phone, you can plug it into the computer, and when you compile it, you can target it to run in the emulator or to run on the physical device. You can run the thing on your own phone without ever having to submit it to the store, so you can see how it really works on a real hardware. It's nice.
And along with that, Tech Escape wants to know how well you think developers are being supported by Microsoft. They doing a pretty good job?
I think they're doing a great job. And that's one of the things, for all of the complaints about Windows Phone that have occurred lately, and I've made a bunch of them myself, the one that has rung as complete as a complete BS is this developer thing where, Microsoft is, like they were delaying payments until February, Microsoft, when they announced this developer program and how things were going to work back in September, said that was when the first payments were going to be made. Nothing has ever changed other than that because of all the whining and complaining, they've bumped up the time period so that they're going to pay now at the end of January instead or whatever. So they've got a nice dashboard for developers to see how their app is selling now. And then they have a great, forums and an interaction with Microsoft employees online and so forth. So there's all kinds of resources for developers if they want to get in touch with Microsoft. Now, there are examples of some people who've had difficulties. We're not going to get to talk to Dimitri this week, I guess, but even Dimitri and I had an interesting conversation about some of the issues around, your app is declined and you want to know why. And it's one of those things, Microsoft is improving over time. The LastPass people who make that browser plugin that I love and recommend are trying to get their app on Windows Phone. And I just saw something today where, they're having difficulty understanding why the current version of the product was declined. But, it's a new platform. I think this is just a learning experience for everybody. But again, you don't have to spend too much time looking around to see that there's just a lot of stuff out there, for developers who need information and need help and all that. And a lot of people very active in all those forums and everything. So there are always going to be issues with anything new like this, but I think it's a pretty good system overall.
Yeah, it was confusing. I was looking up LastPass today to answer somebody's question, and they have the Windows Phone logo on the front page, but when you click through, it only says Windows Mobile 5 Plus.
Yes.
So I assumed that meant they hadn't got the Windows Phone.
They recently published a blog post where they described how their Windows Phone 7 version was declined, but they didn't understand why. And I actually forwarded that to a couple of people at Microsoft today because that's just stupid.
Yeah, just get that cleared up.
But they ignore my emails. So
that's right. They're not reading your emails.
Yeah, well, I bypassed PR this time. But
Daddy-O says, will the next version of Windows be called 8?
That's what they call it internally.
Yeah, I mean, Windows 7 was not called Windows 7 throughout its entire life. It's generally the fact that they changed the code name. Could this be one of the few times they don't? They just say, yeah, it's going to be 8.
Yeah, it could go either way. I mean, Microsoft publicly has come out and said, well, Steven Sinofsky said to me, well, we never said it was going to be called Windows 8, but when I talk to guys at Microsoft, Windows 8 is the way, it's always called Windows 8. So its final name will be determined, but right now, yeah, it's Windows 8.
Do you think, Kingy has an interesting question. Could games for Windows Live eventually have the same level of success as Steam, or do you think it's too late for that sort of thing?
This is a tough one because it's unclear how Microsoft got people to pay for Xbox Live, right? Everywhere else in the world, on the PC, on the PlayStation, this stuff is available for free. And on the Xbox side, to do things like multiplayer matchmaking and so forth, get the leaderboards and all those advanced features, you have to pay for the gold subscription. So Games for Windows Live is an attempt to bring Xbox Live to the PC, which again is a little misguided because there are already all of these great online services for gaming. Games do them individually, or you have a service like Steam where it's basically Xbox Live for Windows. There's no cost for Steam to the end user. And you don't get all of the stuff you get on Xbox Live, but anyone who uses Steam can tell you it's a great service and so forth. So, can Microsoft make Games for Windows Live as successful as Steam? I would say no, not while you have to pay for it, But it's from Microsoft's perspective, how do you make it free on Windows if you don't make it free on Xbox? They just raised the price, for crying out loud, so yeah. It's also a service that hasn't gotten a lot of support from Microsoft. They've kind of gotten back into it a little bit this year. They're talking about it a little bit for the first time in a while, and it still has some catching up to do. I think that if they could make the experience as identical as possible on Windows, that it could be successful. Whether it will ever be as successful as, Steam, it's hard to imagine, I guess, that happening, unfortunately.
Yeah. Lennon 2010 is interested in getting the lower cost limited data plan with his Windows phone, but he wants to know how conservative Windows is with data access. Is he going to run into trouble with that?
Yes, he is. So I've been tracking my data usage with Windows Phone, and if you go to windowsphonesecrets.com, you can see the post I've made about that. It has gone up dramatically each month to the point now where I actually think something is wrong. Like I think there's something maybe programmatically wrong occurring there on the Windows Phone side. I've had a lot of other people who read the blog and write in via email and so forth and tell me the same thing, that it's gone up and up and up, and I don't know why. I don't use this phone more than I used my iPhone before. I use it as much. I'm not doing anything crazy with it. And there seems to be some indication that even when Wi-Fi is enabled, it's using the 3G connection in many cases. So when I talk about the many bugs that Microsoft needs to fix in Windows Phone, I think this is one of the important ones. So for right now, you're going to have to really monitor that. If you buy an AT&T phone, AT&T has an awesome application called My Wireless where you can track your data usage on an ongoing basis, and I would recommend doing that at the very least. But you're going to have to be very careful with it. I certainly could not use the lower-end data plan myself. I've exceeded that every month, so hopefully that gets rectified.
G-Poi wants to know if Hotmail changed their spam filter because he's been getting a lot of spam. My guess is no, because that happens to me in every email account I have. Spam just sort of comes in waves like that. But you haven't heard of anything like that, have you?
No, and for whatever it's worth, I get email like that occasionally from people who say, Hotmail, I have Hotmail, and what's going on, and I use Gmail, and Gmail is fantastic, and overall, I'd have to say it does a really good job with the spam. But I still get mail every day, one or two, that are just so crazily, obviously spam. I have no idea how these things make it through all the way to my inbox. I just don't get it. So it's not just Hotmail, I think is the way I would put it. So, who could say? But you would think in this day and age, this would be very, very easy to fix, but it seems like it's still happening.
And then finally, Media Center. I'm going to consolidate a few questions.
Okay.
Have you tried PS3 as a Media Center? And is using a Windows Media Center preferable or practical in replacing your DVR, do you think?
At this point in the game, I don't think it makes sense to use Windows Media Center running on a Windows PC as a DVR. I just don't think that's a viable alternative for most people, unfortunately. I don't believe that that's the direction that Microsoft's taking it either. I believe that they're going in the direction that I've been talking about lately, where we can get a lot of content from the internet, web video sources and so forth, and that the complexity of adding tuner cards and doing all that stuff inside of a PC and then having that PC be out in your den controlling your cable connection it's just too much. So I don't think that that's the future there. That said, I think that the Windows Media Center interface is awesome, and that is something that could form the basis of something like a Google TV type of thing where there's a device behind it instead of a Windows PC, an embedded version of Windows 7 or whatever, and that instead of having TV tuner card type stuff, that you would, access all of these online services, Hulu and Netflix and YouTube and so forth. I think there's a future there. I have used the PS3 as I would call it as a set-top box kind of thing, a digital media receiver. In the past, I don't have one right now. That is something I will be investigating very soon. I've done a series of articles about various set-top boxes over the past few months.
Did you use the Western Digital as part of that?
I did, two versions of it. So there's the traditional WD TV Live Plus, which is one of the traditional WD devices. And then there's the hub device, which is the one that has the onboard terabyte of storage. I think for Windows users, and I shouldn't say that, not just Windows users, but Windows users who are invested in sort of the Microsoft digital media solutions, play content through Windows Media Player and so forth. These devices are the purest Windows solutions there are. They're even better than the Xbox 360, for whatever that's worth, because they support those DLNA type technologies that Microsoft built into Windows 7. And if you want to send content from a Windows PC, a laptop, or whatever, to your TV, like you can on the Apple side with AirPlay, that's how you do it. The WD TV devices are the best ones. So I will look at the PS3, but it will probably be after the holidays.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for submitting your questions in the chat room. We appreciate that. Do you want to keep with your Windows Phone app of the week? It doesn't look like we're going to be able to get Dimitri on the line.
No, we're going to have to hold that off for next week.
All right. So no app of the week then, unless you have a last-minute replacement.
No, I mean, when I look back on my own or look at my own Windows Phone usage, I just went on a trip and I've been playing a lot of that Need for Speed game, which I'd like to finish soon, and Monopoly. But these were previous picks already, so
all right.
I mean, most of the stuff I actually use has been the stuff I picked. So
you could have your best of 2010 pick and just pick one of the ones you picked before.
Oh, the very best of 2010. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So right. So what? That's interesting. What do I use most of all? I don't know if I want to pick one like that.
No.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I mean, I have to. Well, no, it's okay. There's a game called Flowers.
Which of your children do you love more?
Yeah, exactly. The boy. No. Kelly's over there.
You said what, Daddy?
She's like, wait, I'm not a boy.
Okay. No, that can't be the right answer.
The very first Windows Phone game that came out is a game called Flowers, and I believe it's free. It's an Xbox Live game. It's just one of those really engaging and addictive kind of puzzle games, and it's Flowers. I mean, that's kind of the UI, but it's just a great game, and it's one of those things you can stand in line and play it, and then you put it down, and a week could go by, and then you pick up the game, and you can just keep going, and it's just such a great little game, and there's no cost to it at all. And I know it's kind of a nothing application in a way, but I keep going back to it, so it's maybe that would be my pick.
Your most frequent used
yeah,
app.
Possibly, yeah.
All right, let's finish off with the tip of the week. What do you got for us? Sounds like a plug-in.
Yeah, so Windows Live Essentials consists of a number of applications, as you know, and some of the core applications have supported this plug-in system actually for a few versions now. And Microsoft has had pages available for each of those apps separately, but now they've created a Windows Live plugins page where you can go and find the available plugins that are there for each of the applications. Most of them are actually made by third parties. They're not made by by Microsoft. But if you look at something like Windows Live Photo Gallery, for example, out of the box, it supports Flickr and Windows Live groups and SkyDrive, obviously the Microsoft services, Facebook and YouTube integration. But you can integrate this application with other photo and video services online, including the one I use, for example, which is Picasa Web. So if you want to use Windows Live Photo Gallery to manage and edit your photos on the PC, but you also want to have some facility for moving those photos up to a, say a cloud-based storage system or whatever, like a, Google Picasa Web. You don't have to use another application or use the web interface. You can actually do it right from within Photo Gallery. You just have to have the right plugin. So, for example, I have the Picasa Web plugin in there as well. But there are plugins in there for this. This is brand new this week. Is the Inkubook photo book uploader is one where you could upload your photos to the service and create a photo book right from within this application. That doesn't natively support that feature, but because the service does, you get that integration piece. So if you look through each of the plugin pages for the various applications, there are some neat plugins for all of those things. And I have to say, I think for me personally, anyway, the plugins for Photo Gallery are the most interesting because it basically just opens up this application, to such a wide variety of online services. So if your favorite service isn't supported natively, I would take a look at this. I think you'd be surprised. It's probably supported through a plugin.
I've got a little marketing advice for Microsoft with this.
Okay,
they should call it the Live App Store.
There you go.
Instead
Exactly
of
right.
plugins. Plugins are that's like 1990s speak.
Or what they should have is an app store for Windows, and that this would be a category or section of it, where you would have IE browser plugins, and you would have these plugins and all that stuff.
All right. Well, a pleasure once again being here for Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott. Thank you, Paul, for tolerating me once again.
You are more than tolerable, sir.
Thank you. High praise. Paul Thurrott, news editor for Windows IT Pro, man in charge of WinSuperSite.com, authors. He's more than one, all rolled up into one man, of Windows Phone secrets on bookstore shelves now. If you want to know the secrets, you got to buy the book. Anything else you want to plug before we head out of here?
So I just want to give a heads up to people about two things, actually. I'm glad you mentioned that. One is that Rafael Rivera and I are going to start working on a Windows 7 troubleshooting book soon, and we will be setting up a website in the next couple of weeks. What we're looking for is people's biggest problems with Windows 7, and if you're looking for solutions to problems, or if you have a unique solution to a problem, I'd like to hear from you about that. But we'll also have a site where people can interact and we can hash through some things. So I'd like the book to be valuable in the sense that I wanted to really address what people, the problems that people are really having with Windows 7. The other one is that in the early part of January, let me look at the calendar.
What was that website again? Because I have some problems.
It's not actually up yet, so okay. I'll have the.
I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah,
Great.
It's going to be called Windows 7 Troubleshooting Secrets, so the URL will be something similar to that. But the weekend of January 8th, I'm going to be doing a study group, if you will. If you are in the Boston area and would like to participate, it involves, it's Microsoft-oriented and has to do with PCs and so forth. I'm not sure how much I can say about it quite yet, but it's going to be probably in Dedham, and it will be over 2 days, over the 8th and the 9th of January. So if you're in the area and you are interested in participating, then we'll have a raffle and a giveaway and all kinds of stuff like that. So please do drop me an email. It's my last name, Thurrott, at gmail.com, and let me know. And we're trying to get a diverse group of people involved so we can get some interesting.
Yeah, that sounds great. And in fact, don't go to CES, people. Just watch us live.twit.tv. You'll save your feet. Right. You'll find out just as much or more about CES by watching our coverage than you would by actually going there. And then, if you're in the Boston area, you can actually go hang out with Paul.
Right. Is that is the weekend of CS? Is that what?
That's the very end of it, right? It starts on that Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember the official day, and then it runs through Sunday. No one ever is around on that Sunday, except for Leo.
So I'm actually not going to go to CES this year. I did go last year, but yeah, I find it. There's some good reasons to go, obviously, but I find it to be a little overwhelming. And given how forward-looking the news is, it's not always. For me, from a news standpoint, it's not always important to be there, I guess. So
No, in fact, Leo has said, he's like, I've always gotten more out of not going than going, but we kind of have to. We provide that service now.
Yeah,
we're the ones canvassing the floor. So we're going to have myself, Becky Worley, Sarah Lane are going to be out on the floor looking for stuff, looking for the trends and the clues. I mean, we're going to see a lot of e-books and tablets and 3D TVs. I think set-top boxes will probably be the big thing that everybody's trying to tout. Like, we've got the internet TV solution.
I think it's going to be a tablet in every aisle.
There's going to be a tablet. Yeah, everyone will have a tablet right next to that. So, anyway, check that out. And if you're in the Boston area, you'll still be free to go do the
if
study
you're not
group.
a CS and
if
you want to hang out on a Saturday or Sunday, let me know.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Good talking
you,
Windows with you once again, sir.
You too.
We'll see you later, folks. I don't know if there's some traditional out. Leo and I were talking yesterday about how radio DJs always have these slogans at the end of their shows.
When I go to Seattle, I always end up on the same awful station, and I always listen to it as I'm driving to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's these guys who, you know, those DJs that have the soundboard where there's a guy who laughs like a jackal, and then, you know, there's audience applause, and I somehow end up on the station every single time I go there, and I just hate myself for listening to it. Is that it?
Got one right here. Is it hooked up? See, we have a few here for Tech News Today. Not yeah, it's not running.
It's like a museum piece.
Yeah, exactly. We have some crickets. We have a sad trombone.
In the wah wah wah. There it is.
Newsflash. Right, we've never used that one, actually. This is the one for our calendar, though.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, good. All right. Well, cool. I get. That's all I got.
All right.
Great show, though.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, too.
What's going on? What is this? You look like the incomplete Death Star in there. What's
Oh, I don't like close-up, so I made it as wide as it could go. Hey, there's Alex.
I'm not going to have Fez head after this, am I?
You might. Well, you don't have like long hair. On the right of this show, dude. So you might escape.
I should be on the right. Okay.
Okay.
Paul, are you okay on the on that side of the screen? Ken's trying to make them switch it there.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah. Now I have to.
No, my contract specifies I must be on the right side of the screen.
This works.